What a night once again in college basketball. It is great to be back aboard live here on the platforms of college basketball coast to coast. I am the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. Hello, Jason Powers, my wingman in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area. Again, if you're catching us later on podcast on the TuneIn streaming outlet, we're doing this immediately after some amazing finishes tonight in college basketball. UCLA, hello. And UCLA down 23 in the first half tonight comes roaring back to win on a last-second overtime driving layup reminiscent of Tyus Edney in the NCAA tournament. And our man Tim Brando on the call on Fox Sports was right on it at the time with that. Jason Powers, we've seen Duke win the epic matchup in the regular season with Michigan. We've seen Arizona with a tremendous win at Houston earlier in the day. Tons happening. Good to be with you. A couple of opening thoughts as we get the show underway on this Saturday, February the 21st, now just about a week away from March.
We were writing Mick Cronin's obituary. We were fitting Dusty May for a national championship ring, and all of a sudden we have Kansas getting smoked at home at Fog Allen. College basketball, 3 weeks to go till Selection Sunday. It never tends to disappoint.
No doubt about that. Again, thank you for finding us, however you have done so, on all of the different platforms here on college basketball coast to coast. Great to be with you this evening, whether you're finding us on YouTube, on Twitter X, or on Facebook Live for the show tonight. Thank you for doing so. Again, we're on podcast, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify after the fact. The TuneIn streaming channel is called College Basketball Coast to Coast. First of a couple of times that we're going to plug live games coming on the College Basketball Coast to Coast TuneIn channel. The Horizon League Championship from Indianapolis with the likes of Wright State, Green Bay, Oakland University, and on out of the Horizon League. Will crown a winner that will go to the NCAA tournament there early in championship week from Indianapolis. And then, Jason, who's going to win the Mountain West Conference tournament title game? Utah State's the top team, and then you really have about 6 other teams that would be contenders. Will be in Las Vegas on Saturday, late afternoon, March the 14th, Pacific time, for that automatic bid in the Mountain West. We look forward to all of it, do we not, as March is about to be here for the mayhem, the madness, before we ever get to the NCAA tournament and the Final Four in Indianapolis.
Can't wait. The one tournament a year that every team in America has a chance to make the tournament. That's one thing you got to love about college basketball versus college football is every team in America, if you're a Division I team, you got a chance to make the tournament. You just got to win some games at the right time, but you can make your own magic and get to March Madness.
And you do have that opportunity. So again, thank you for finding us. Coming up straight ahead, we're going to hear from Adam Zagoria, our insider in the Northeast around the Big East. A big day for St. John's, who's now won 13 games in a row. They won earlier Saturday at the Garden over Creighton. Creighton had upset UConn in the previous game. There was no upset today. The Garden, They got flattened by St. John's. UConn, by the way, bounced back and won at Villanova. Adam will have insight on both of those, and he will also have insight on the Duke win over Michigan. More on that in a moment. So Adam's conversation coming up in a few minutes. We talked to him just a little earlier tonight before the show began. Matt Zemek will also be here, our Western Bureau chief. You think he's going to have some stuff to say about UCLA and the bounce-back win for them over Illinois after 2 destructive losses to Michigan and Michigan State? Matt will be here later in the show live with us. What do you have here, including the Duke win tonight?
2 nuggets. You and I are watching the game, the UCLA-Illinois game. They're down 20 at the 10-minute mark of the first half. 20.
Yes,
at home,
absolutely.
in their building. Okay? Last time St. John's has won 13 games in a row. You know when that was?
I believe we're going back to Chris Mullen, Walter
Bill
the Truth
Winnington.
Berry, Bill Winnington, Lou Carnesecca, and St. John's 1985, right?
Correct.
Amazing what we've watched and what we've witnessed. All right, you and I get into it a little bit here. How did Duke get this done with Michigan in the 1-3 game that could have gone either way? It was in Washington, D.C., neutral floor. Jason, your thoughts?
Give Duke credit defensively. They really got up into Michigan. They forced them to continue to shoot perimeter jumpers. Michigan did not shoot the ball extremely well today, which, again, Duke's got a good defensive team. And again, you and I were watching this game play by play, and the difference maker late was who? Cameron Boozer, the
Yes.
All-American, probably first or second choice for player of the year. He played really well down the stretch. He was a mismatch problem for them. And every time Duke needed a big bucket late, Boozer delivered, whether it was at the foul line or those short post-ups. He did a great job. But give that Duke defense the credit tonight. John Shire, he can coach a little bit, right?
Yeah. So if you need him, let's say this. They have won at Michigan State. They have won a neutral floor game that's looking better and better with Arkansas against Chicago. They won earlier in the year, putting it on Kansas at Madison Square Garden. Have you heard a team? Have you heard a team yet that isn't a potential Elite Eight or Final Four team with those? Although Kansas wavering a little bit, beat Florida at home. Now won this game tonight. They have risen to the occasion over and over and over again. And Boozer at one point, to your point, had 7 big points down the stretch right in a row. They also got the stops defensively. Boozer a big part of that. Held Michigan down to 63 points in a game. Jason, a takeaway or two about that as well.
Naganga kind of neutralized Mara, the big player for Michigan. Landeborg had a good first half, did not score a lot of points in the second half. Some turnovers by Kadu late. We saw miss a layup late in the game, missed a couple free throws. So again, was Michigan going to win the rest of their games? Probably not. But I think this puts the rest of the country on notice that Duke is a serious contender here, and they have enough, defensively, and they've got a star in Boozer who can carry them if need be down the stretch.
Again, big shots that were made by Duke in this one. Lindenborg played well for Michigan. He didn't really have a complimentary player to help out. And a lot of people are looking at this saying Final Four, if not national championship game preview. With these teams, a made-for-TV game. They decided in the offseason to play this game because the ACC Big Ten Challenge doesn't happen anymore because ESPN doesn't televise the Big Ten anymore. They don't have a TV deal with them, but they did this made-for-TV one-off for this game, and what a dandy, what a preview that we got for March to watch that game tonight out of conference.
Terrific. Yeah, usually Duke plays one of these kind of games most every year. For many years, have played St. John's kind of in February for many years. They like to play these kind of non-conference mid-February showcase games. And again, neutral floor in D.C. ESPN got a really good rating, I am sure. Coming off the Houston, Arizona game. That was a pretty good game late. So, yeah, I'm sure they got a monster, really good rating and leading into the Olympic coverage and all that stuff. So good for college basketball for scheduling, good for these programs for scheduling this game this late in the year. And it lived up to the billing. Top 3 teams. They're both going to be number 1 seeds. And again, we very much could have a preview of what you might see in Indianapolis later in early April.
Early April, they will be playing there. And it is fascinating that the East Regional will end in Washington, D.C., that arena. Yeah. The Michigan Wolverines will play in the Big Ten tournament in Chicago, and then will likely be the number 1 seeded team in the Midwest Regional, which will also finish in Chicago. Right. And then will these teams see each other in Indianapolis? Stay tuned. Couple of more items before we get to the conversation with Adam Zagoria. Again, we talked about UCLA's tremendous win tonight. Let's say some words about Arizona. A bit banged up without the super freshman Koa Pete. They go into Houston and outplay the Cougars for much of the game. Houston did come back and get the brief lead with about 4 minutes left, but then Arizona was the better team late in the Big 12. What a statement for Tommy Lloyd's team to get that win against Houston.
Excellent. Again, bad week for Houston. Lose it. I mean, it's not terrible, but you lose it at Iowa State. You lose late there. You lose obviously at home. I think most people thought Houston would hold serve at home today in the Fertitta Center. Again, I didn't see a ton of this game, but Arizona, you made the comment before the game that they were getting a lot of points from a point spread perspective, and give them all the credit. They controlled the flow of the game for most of that game. They were 5, 6, 7 points in front most of that game, and then obviously had the surge late in the last 3 minutes.
We know that name, Anthony Del Orso, you and I, because we worked the Big South tournament title game when he played for the Campbell Camels out of North Carolina. He has stepped up a couple of notches now into the Big 12 with some
Right.
NIL money. He was big with 22 in the game. And who else? Karchenko, the Russian, had 16 in the contest. Bradley was 17. He's a freshman, Jaden Bradley. It's
Yep.
crazy how talented and how deep Arizona is. And they did a good job holding down, for the most part, Kingston Flemings, the super freshman scorer. He only had 17 in the game. Great win for Arizona after they had taken a couple of losses. They beat BYU early in the week in a game that they had command in, but BYU made a late rally, made it interesting. So they held off BYU. Now they go into Houston and win, and Arizona looks like a 1 seed. You would agree, Jason? Right now
Oh,
they keep over and over again answering the bell.
no doubt they're going to be a 1 seed for sure. Again, Arizona, with that reputation over the years, they got to do it in the tournament. They got to do it in March because they've had high seeded teams over the years, and they've been a highly seeded team a couple times under Lloyd and have come up short. To me, this is more of a disappointing loss for Houston. To me, again, they're the same kind of boat. Can they ever get over the hump and win it all? We know they got a good team. They don't seem like they're as tough on the interiors they've been in years past, more perimeter oriented with Sharp and with Flemings. Can they reestablish that toughness on the defensive end to make them a championship level team?
Again, for Arizona, they improve on the season. I'm just double checking here to 12-2 in the rugged Big 12 conference, and they have answered the bell several times so far this year. Keep in mind, out of conference wins over Florida to begin the year, at UConn, in Birmingham, in a home away from home situation against Alabama, and now these guys are unfazed going to win at Houston. By the way, that is the fourth time they've beaten a top 5 team at the time they played them out of the AP poll this year. That hasn't happened in over a decade in college basketball in the regular season. That's how good Arizona has been.
And 48 hours from now, they'll be in Fall Gallon Fieldhouse on Monday night, coming off of a Kansas team who lost their first home game in a long time. How about this, TJ Rives? Since 2018, the first time Kansas has lost a Saturday home game against anybody. First time in 8 years they've lost a game at home on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's and Bill Self was kind of shaking his head at the Cincinnati game earlier today as Wes Miller's team just stomped all over them defensively in the second half of the game. Great effort from them. Couple more, and then we're going to get to this conversation with Adam Zagoria in a few moments. We are in the Sunshine State. Guess who is reminding everybody, hey, we're the defending champions. The Florida Gators roll at Ole Miss earlier today. And this is the same time, the month of February, where they put it into gear last year. I know Walter Clayton was the catalyst of that team, but you've got several pieces back. You've got the same head coach. They look the part.
The front line is better, more skilled than they were a year ago.
And we should say that they clobbered Ole Miss. They continue to roll now at 12-2, I believe it is, in the SEC. I'll double check on
Maybe
that
13.
record.
Might be.
I think it could be on that. Let me double check here on what Florida was able to do. 12-2 through the game today. And interesting, the selection committee, I put it up there, they revealed their top 16 teams. They did not have Florida on the 2 line. They have them on the 3 line. So are they being disrespected a little bit by that committee that's headed up by the Sun Belt Commissioner Keith Gill and the other members? Again, it's subject to change. If Florida keeps rolling, you and I would agree, if they roll all the way through and win the SEC tournament like they did 12 months ago, they're going to probably be a number 2 seed. They're on the 3 line right now, and all of this is going to change with winning and losing. But
and they
Florida,
might be
again, very impressive.
They might be the number 1 three line team, so they're 9th probably in the rankings.
They were today,
so 1 spot away from an 8. So, which means, Florida keeps winning. They're going to be on the 2 line. There's no doubt. They don't even have to. I don't even think they have to win the SEC conference. If they run the table and lose 1 game the rest of the way, whether it's in the tournament or not, they're going to be on the 2 line. That team is peaking at the right time. They're getting some guard play now from Lee and Fland and some other guys off the bench. Chinyelu's still playing well. Hand logged in. You're getting Houck. You got plenty of depth on the front line, size. That's the team that nobody wants to play when you're that if you're at 2 seed in whatever region they're in.
Thomas Houck is definitely a better scorer. He's improved as a scorer and as a shooter. So it's not everything, but they're the defending champs, and they got pieces back on that front line, and they've got some guards that are coming around. Clavichar is how you say the name. He has been a tremendous shooter the last few games for Florida. All right, better than just you and me, let's incorporate some of our guests, including Adam Zagoria of NJ.com and also the Zags blog. He is all over the Big East in the Northeast, where St. John's made a statement, where UConn bounced back from a loss today. Oh, by the way, those teams are playing again midweek next week. We'll get some thoughts from Adam on all of that and the Duke win over Michigan. Let's go to this conversation that was a little earlier this evening here as we rock on college basketball coast to coast. Adam, I guess the first thing is obviously we started the day with what St. John's did at the Garden against Creighton. Creighton off the upset of UConn. And the Red Storm, 13 wins in a row. They were impressive. That's my thought. What were your thoughts watching that?
Yeah, I mean, look, this Creighton team, TJ, was coming off a win at UConn the other night. It was pretty impressive. But St. John's just dominated them by almost 30 points. And they've won 13 games in a row. It's kind of quietly, St. John's has won 13 games in a row. They're now 22-5, 15-1 in the Big East. UConn also won, so St. John's has a half-game lead over UConn, and they have a monster game Wednesday night in Hartford.
Yeah, more on that in a couple of moments. Why has Pitino's team come together? He was searching some in the pre-conference. Obviously, they have found several things. What have they found in your mind?
I mean, Rick's teams always, tend to get better as the season goes along, as one would expect from a Hall of Fame coach. He's been playing Dylan Mitchell, a little bit as a point forward. And also this kid, Dylan Darling, I think he had a season high 17 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, has really given them a quality point guard, which they didn't have earlier in the season. So, St. John's is just one of these teams I don't think anybody wants to play right now. And that game on Wednesday is just going to be huge.
Yeah, something to be said for the New York atmosphere and the Garden. And as you know, you're my contemporary. You love this. This is the biggest win streak they've had since the 85 Final Four team won 19 games in a row. And when you're getting compared to Chris Mullen and Walter the Truth Berry, we're older, but that's some big time elite stuff to be mentioned with.
Yeah, and they're also the other thing is, they're probably in a position now to get especially if they win, get a 4 seed, which would kind of protect them in the NCAA tournament. And maybe they stay local and go to Philly or DC. That would help.
No doubt. All right, so UConn later in the day, speaking of Philly, goes to Villanova, and I saw not as much, but I saw some of this game. To me, this was a veteran team saying to the Big East and everybody else, okay, Creighton got us the other night, but we're still UConn. They made shots. They defended. What did you see out of Danny Hurley's team in response of the loss?
Yeah, I mean, you knew Dan wasn't going to, was not happy after they lost to Creighton the other night. I'm sure the locker room and practice were not very pleasant for the UConn players. And again, like you said, they're a veteran team, but to go into Villanova against, Kevin Willard's got that team playing well in his first season there, and to just kind of take care of business with a 10-point win. It wasn't a blowout, wasn't spectacular, but they get double digits from Alex Caravan, Taris Reed, Braylon Mullins, and it just keeps them half a game behind St. John's.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes of the second half, they broke open a 2-point game up to 17, as many as 17, shot 55% from the floor, and win on the road. What do you anticipate? Just look ahead for a second. What do you anticipate? The game is in Hartford for the bigger crowd on Wednesday. St. John's overtook UConn in the final 5 minutes to win the game at the Garden. What do you anticipate? Wednesday night.
I mean, it's funny. After UConn lost the first game, I tried to get Alex Caravan and the other guys talking about, how big does this make the rematch and the second game? And, nobody was really kind of biting on that. They just said, we'll be prepared. And Zuby Ejiofor said, we'll be ready for it. We know they're gonna they're gonna come prepared. But, it's gonna be a pro UConn crowd in Hartford. And obviously Danny's gonna have them fired up. If somehow St. John's wins this game, they're going to be in position to win their second straight Big East regular season title and have the #1 seed at the Big East tournament.
Yes, they will. All right, that is for Wednesday. One more Big East note. Seton Hall, if there's a fourth team that maybe has an at-large case, maybe not, it's Seton Hall. Certainly UConn, St. John's, and even Villanova has a strong argument at large. Seton Hall got a win over Georgetown earlier this evening. Any thought on Shaheen Holloway's team? They had to bounce back, which they did, and got the win. Any other thought on them?
Yeah, I mean, this team is just so crazy. They're kind of painful to watch. They shot 0 of 18 from three. They scored 20 points in the first half, and they still end up winning this game 51-47 because they played great D and held Georgetown to 27% and 17 from three. This is the 8th time this season Seton Hall has trailed at the half and come back to win. And they truly are a bubble team. I mean, let's remember, TJ, this team was picked last in the Big East. They now have 19 wins. They get one more win, they're going to have 20. And they're in 4th place in the Big East after being picked last. Now they have a bye now, which they need because they're tired. They're going to play at UConn next Saturday, and then they close the regular season with St. John's. They desperately need to win one of those. I do not see them winning at Connecticut. They did have a 15-point lead on St. John's at the Garden, so maybe they can win that game in Newark.
And the Big East tournament could be big if they get a shot at maybe knocking off a Villanova or pulling an upset on the neutral floor as well. Still some time to pad the resume. Before our Big East and Northeast insider Adam Zagoria is gone, I can't have you on and not ask you about Duke and winning this game, monster game with Michigan in Washington, D.C. What a battle. We may see this again in Indianapolis. Final Four time, national title time. A lot of basketball to be played between now and then. But your thoughts on Duke pulling out another significant win?
I mean, first of all, just how much fun is it, TJ, that we get this game in late February? It's a non-conference game. I think maybe it's a trend that we'll see this kind of thing going forward. You got to credit both Dusty May and John Shire for scheduling this game. It was kind of a Final Four environment. The East Regional is going to be played in D.C., so they played this, on the court where the East Regional is going to be, big fan base. There were a lot of recruits there. As you would expect, it was a hard-fought, toe-to-toe game. And, the bottom line is Duke comes out with the win and puts themselves in position to be the #1 overall seed in the tournament. And also, let's point out, #2 Houston and #1 Michigan have both lost. So you got to think Duke's going to be #1 in the AP poll on Monday. They get almost a triple-double from Cam Boozer, 18, 10, and 7. I thought Patrick Ngungba had a terrific game, 11 and 6. Isaiah Evans had 14. And, they made the plays down the stretch to win the game.
One thing that goes unheralded, but not by John Shire, not by the Duke fans, they guarded Michigan as well. Say something about that. They guarded them very well and held them right around 55, 60 points when a lot of people have trouble holding them under 80. Yes?
Yeah, exactly. They held them to 63, and this is a Michigan team that's routinely putting up, 80, 90 points a night. So you can only hope we're going to see a game like this again in the Final Four. And let's also point out that, Arizona beat Houston in the other kind of top 4 matchup of the day. It seems like it had seemed like Michigan and Arizona had separated themselves as the top 2 teams, but here comes Duke beating beating Michigan. Houston, it's just how crazy the Big 12 is, right? Houston has now lost. They're the #2 team in the country, They've lost 2 games in a row in their league.
Yep.
Now they got to go to Allen Fieldhouse on Monday and play a Kansas team that got whipped up on by Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's angry. Good luck out in the Big 12, and clearly Duke looks like the team in the ACC. Listen, I always love your insight. Buckle up for the rematch with St. John's and UConn. Read him on the Zags blog, zagsblog.com, nj.com for more on Seton Hall and the Big East. Adam Zagoria, thank you. We appreciate you hanging on a Thursday night or on a Saturday night once again on college basketball coast to coast, my friend.
Right on, brother. Have a good night.
Love whenever we get the chance to have Adam on with us with the insight there. All right, Jason Powers, I call you back in as well. Let's say a little more about what he and I were talking about with the Big East while we're here. St. John's impressive, UConn impressive. Probably a 3-bid league unless somebody makes a run in the Big East tournament to get the automatic bid besides one of those teams. But man, at the top, both of those teams, St. John's and UConn, look like Elite Eight, Final Four type material. I'm saying that. Do you agree?
I totally agree. I think, again, St. John's with Patino, we know his history. He's unlike last year where they had a real struggle to score points. This year they got much better at perimeter shooting. You got Ejiofor. You have the emergence of Dylan Mitchell, who's a Tampa kid in that lineup, kind of their point forward, a guy that can facilitate. So Patino with some depth and some shooting and that coaching, keep an eye on. I think so. And we know Hurley. We know what Dan Hurley can do with again, they're not as skilled as they were when they won the title, but they got the grit. They got the pedigree. They still have Caravan, who's been there during all that. They've got some offense. And how about the last play of the game when we thought that they were running the clock out and the two coaches are shaking hands, and all of a sudden we see Hurley go, we hear a whistle, and we hear Hurley go, what the, you know what is going on? It's funny. It was a funny little
because somebody from Villanova is trying to steal the ball in a 12-point game with about 5 seconds left. So
yeah, it was funny.
Great statement win off the loss to Creighton midweek at home by Villanova tonight.
Adam's point about Seton Hall, great opportunity. If they can somehow beat one of those two teams in the regular season and maybe win a couple of those games and beat one of those two in the conference tournament, that could be your 4th entry of the Big East potential.
They got to help themselves immensely, and then they got to have other people lose out in terms of bubble teams. But this is the story. They were the story last year as the regular season champs and the tournament champs. And remember, they were a 2 seed and lost to the 10 seed Arkansas on the second day of the NCAA tournament, St. John's. They don't want a replay of that. But this is 13 straight wins, including a win over UConn, where they had to come back, and they had to come back from double figures down against Seton Hall to win. But they've won 13 in a row. That is the most in 41 years since they were number 1 in the country with Chris Mullen and Walter the Truth Berry for that St. John's team that made the Final Four. There's so much nostalgia around that team. Is this team, we still got 2 or 3 weeks to figure it out, is this team capable of that? Stay tuned on the Red Storm. Stay tuned.
And it'll be interesting to see if they get placed potentially in Buffalo in the first 2 rounds. That means they'll be able to bring some people close to home.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And obviously, if they get put in Washington, D.C., in that region, potentially, you'll have a lot of St. John's people making the commute. And, boy, one of the best conference tournaments every year is that Big East tournament. That Friday, Saturday night in the Garden, if it's UConn and St. John's for the trilogy, potentially, that'll be I know you like to talk about ticket prices and all that.
Yeah.
A ticket that Saturday night. If it's the Big East
there's electric, and then there's like light up Las Vegas electric, and or light up Madison Square Garden electric,
right?
Like what that is. All right, let's go over several things for those just joining us on college basketball coast to coast. A tremendous win by Duke earlier tonight, this evening in Washington D.C. Duke wins the game with Michigan. Repeat again for audience just joining us live. I know if you're on the pod, if you're on the streaming tune-in show after the fact, we're doing this live on Saturday. A lot of people are coming and going, finding us on social media, finding the show later. Why did Duke win the game? Adam had his thoughts. Reiterate your thoughts, Jason, on why Duke won the game.
Defensive intensity. They did a great job guarding Michigan man-to-man. They rebounded the ball pretty well. Boozer was an impact to force late in the game, 7 points late in that game. And again, he showed why he's going to be an All-American, potentially Player of the Year. When they needed buckets, when Michigan made a run, Michigan was down, I think 8 and got it to 1. Boozer made 2 or 3 buckets late in the last 3 minutes to make that game a 7-point game and kind of put the game away. And Michigan did not shoot the ball as well as they have, but give a lot of that credit to Duke's defensive effort, especially on the perimeter.
And John Shire, once again, get the ball in the right hands. They came out of a timeout with about 3 minutes left. He had a play diagram. They got an alley-oop dunk. They always seem – I know they did lose the game to North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, but they seem – to be able to execute when it matters the most, get the ball in your best player's hands. Cam Boozer, they diagrammed a couple plays for him, and it worked out. He's a tremendous passer, too. Underrated passer, setting up teammates. He was big for Duke as well. We're going to talk more about UCLA in a couple of moments. For those just joining us that didn't see it, overtime comeback win. The Bruins dead in the ground with dirt on them in the first half after
getting crushed.
25-point blowout loss at Michigan, 25-plus blowout loss at Michigan State, getting beaten by 23 in the first half by Illinois, come all the way back to win in overtime. Donovan Dent goes from about 70 feet out on 4 dribbles and dribbles all the way into the rim and the winning layup for a 95-94 win for UCLA. I know Matt Zemek's going to talk more in a couple of moments about it. But your thought on this?
This was a season-defining win for UCLA. This game might propel them. They're probably back on the bubble line as far as getting in the tournament. This team very easily, based on what we saw happen midweek with him sending the kid off to the locker room.
Yep.
He apologized 2 days later, but it was a bad look for Mick Cronin for them to respond like they did. Give that team credit. That means they still believe in Mick Cronin a little bit. They easily down 20 at the 10-minute mark could have packed it in, and that could have been the end of their year and could have been the end of Mick Cronin's run at UCLA for all we know. But give that team credit, and I would say it's a little bit of an indictment on Illinois for you can't blow that kind of lead.
No,
I mean, if you want to be a Final Four big time team, you bury that UCLA team and you put that game away. So I think it's a little bit of an indictment on Illinois defensively.
Yes.
But again, Illinois is going to be a tough out in the tournament, but that's not a great sign when you blow a lead like that at UCLA.
UCLA wanted it more on the boards, the loose balls. As the game wore on, it looked like they wanted it more, and they made some shots. That was big, too. So more with Matt Zemek about that game in a few moments. He's our Western Bureau Chief. We're just going over things from this afternoon and tonight for the audience here before we focus on the West Coast teams and the Western basketball. This was probably the game of the afternoon in terms of how did that happen. Cincinnati, not just that they won, but they dominated Kansas in the final 10 minutes of the game at Fog Allen. Peterson, Darren Peterson has been a question mark over and over and over again. Question mark again in this game, kind of disappeared. And Cincinnati made one big shot after another. Wes Miller's team has been hovering around 500. What does that make them again? 15-12?
7-7 in the league. Yeah.
But they have 5 quad one wins, including this one in the Big 12.
Right.
Stunner at Kansas. Not good for Kansas that already took a loss to Iowa State last weekend. Has taken a couple of other losses. Recently.
Hard to believe this Cincinnati team hasn't been in the tournament since 2019. That's hard to believe that as storied program as they've been over the last 25 years or so. I mean, Wes Miller feeling some heat of that from that administration. A lot of people think he's on the hot seat, so huge win. And again, I did not see much defensive intensity out of Kansas, but Dunga played pretty well in the post. But you mentioned the kid for Cincinnati, Thame, that big, tall, the 6'11", 7-foot kid. He was making jump hooks. He made a couple threes. He played really well. So give Cincinnati all the credit. They went into that building and they thoroughly dominated Kansas in the second half.
I believe they pronounce it Chom. I have not heard of him, but he's an African
Yep.
player that has come into Cincinnati at about 6'11" with the long arms, and he's got some touch on the
Post
jumper.
moves.
Pretty good passer.
Yep.
And the Bearcats get that win. You love the nostalgia, by the way. Last time that Cincinnati won a game on the road against a top 10 team is Bob Huggins and Nick Van Exel, 1990. You want to go
Wow.
back 36 years?
Wow.
36 years since they beat a top 10 team on the road, and they got Kansas today in that one. So we're just going over some of the stuff that
Speaking of
happened
Big
from
12,
earlier in the day. Yep.
how surprised were you that the committee had Iowa State as the fourth number 1 seed, the same Iowa State that's now down 12 points late in the first half at BYU tonight? How about that?
Yeah, that is a bit surprising, but again, they swept Kansas recently. They also
Beat
have a
Houston.
couple of other huge out-of-conference wins. Got the
Yeah.
Houston win earlier in the week. They've got 3 legit out-of-conference wins. That's also helping them, and all of this is going to change
in Provo at the half.
Yeah, they're down 9 as we do this in real time. A couple of other results. Auburn has gotten a huge win with a last-second putback over Kentucky. While we talk bubble teams tonight a little bit, as they're able to get the victory. Kudos to Stephen Pearl's team that has a win at Florida and now a nice win at home with Kentucky. Kentucky probably still safely in the tournament at this stage.
They're good.
But they got the win. And what else from tonight? Gonzaga had to kind of scratch and claw. They've regained their footing a little bit in the West Coast Conference. This was a game that was tied at 47 with about 12 minutes to go with Pacific at home. They end up winning by 8 tonight. So Gonzaga is looking good as well here after what we saw. All right, let's get to him without further delay. He is standing by. Let's say hello to the Western Bureau Chief. Hello, Matt Zemek, to get in with some takes and some opinions on a Saturday night on college basketball coast to coast as we do this live with all the action that we have seen. Good evening, my friend. Let's don't bury the lead. You write up the UCLA Bruins wire for the USA Today website. Had them all the way, baby. Down by 23 in the first half. The Bruins come storming back to beat Illinois. How did they do it as we bring you in?
What an incredible week in Westwood, because, when Mick Cronin self-ejected Stephen Jamerson, that's the kind of moment that can easily fracture a locker room. Players could have quit. And so when Illinois goes up 33-10, is there a single soul on the planet who thinks UCLA is even making this a game? Forget about winning. Even making this a game. Well, apparently the players in that UCLA inner circle, they're the ones who believed, and they're the only ones who counted. So obviously they care about Mick Cronin. They were willing to play hard for him. Let's go back to 1995, shall we?
Yep.
UCLA's play-by-play announcer was Chris Roberts, and the color analyst for UCLA's booth back then, Marcus Johnson. And it was Marcus Johnson who went, yeah, baby, when Tyus Edney went coast to coast, college basketball coast to coast against Missouri. Tyus Edney tweeted after Donovan Dent's bucket, yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby.
By
the way, Matt knows
to 1995.
Matt knows the answer, but I don't think we covered this, Jason Powers. Who was the coast to coast against in the NCAA tournament? Does Powers remember? From 30
Mizzou.
Very nice.
And they went on to win the national title, correct, Matt Zemek?
Yes, I believe that is correct. And I'm
in the first round. That game was in the first round of the tournament. Yes. I believe in Boise.
That's correct. I believe so. The national championship year in 1995. This was reminiscent.
I still say, welcome to Boise.
Okay. I still can't get over, because Illinois scored with about 4.5 seconds left. They called a timeout to talk about defense, and they let Donovan Dent drive through 3 of them without stopping the dribbler. Let's just analyze the play again for a minute or two. He got from midcourt all the way to the rim without anybody, including a 7-footer around the rim, who doesn't get in front of him and doesn't block the shot. Matt, amazing.
Yeah, I don't understand calling a timeout for defense. 5 seconds left, scramble situation. don't give the team on offense a chance to diagram a play.
Yeah.
And, you know, they set the pick at midcourt. They had the structure. You know, you just got to let it be a panic situation for the offense, and they try and figure something out on the fly. So that struck me as pretty dumb. And then Ivisic in the paint, you got to just come up and contest instead of allowing Dent to get all the way to the rim. It was definitely matador defense. So, you know, couple things here. First, UCLA's biggest wins of the year were this game, down 23, down 1 with 5 seconds left, and then UCLA was down 6 to Purdue with 95 seconds left. So UCLA's 2 biggest wins have been just scramble situation, remarkable comebacks. And the other piece of this is Mick Cronin. You know, so UCLA likely in the NCAA tournament now with a high-end win. It's not a lock, but UCLA now on the good side of the bubble for sure. You know, what does this do for the Mick Cronin situation at UCLA? Because like you don't get paid just to get a 10 seed at UCLA. Like that is not the standard. The buyout for Mick Cronin, because AD Martin Jarman gave him a new 5-year extension, a really dumb deal. The buyout's over $22 million. So UCLA is not paying that. UCLA does not have the money to eat that. Is this a situation where if you're UCLA, you think, well, okay, we'll take on Mick Cronin for another year? Or is it still best, as I've written at UCLA Wire this past week, it's best if he finds another job. It's best if he goes to Memphis. It's best if he goes to Syracuse. It's best if he goes to another job elsewhere in the country. I think that UCLA needs the reset, but they can't fire him. So you just encourage him to seek new opportunities. As the jargon, the terminology goes. I still think that's really the best case scenario, but obviously a storybook win like this will definitely quiet some of the noise in the system, and maybe this gives
Hey,
year, but it's not a clear-cut thing. Like Bill Plaschke said, this is a national embarrassment. UCLA should not have nothing to do anymore with Mick Cronin. He's a bully. You know, that bad publicity is still going to stick. Like one game, so really complicated situation here.
It does change this part. If they want to keep him and if he wants to stay, this is the kind of win that you can point to that his team still responded when they could have rolled over like Rover, my friend, as you know, and Pauley Pavilion would have had no one in it in the second half of the game. So if you want to make the argument to keep him, and if he wants to stay, you're pointing to February 21st, 2026, down by 23 when your team could have been destroyed again, and it did not happen. So
100%.
I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do there. All right, we have several other things we want to cover with you tonight. Again, you cover kind of the Western Bureau for us. We're in the East, Jason and I in Florida. Matt, full disclosure, is in Denver in the western part of the country. You do a great job with this. How impressive is this Arizona win with no Koa Pete? They look like one of the premier teams. The selection committee has them as a number 1 seed on February 21st. But to go into Houston and get that win, say some more about it, Matt.
Not just missing Koa Pete, but missing another rotational player. One of their starters was sick, and they didn't shoot free throws well. I mean, like this was an undermanned, not very healthy Arizona team, and it didn't even play its A game, and yet is still able to dominate Houston down the stretch. Like Houston didn't score in like 7 minutes from like 11:38 to 4:32, something like that. Like that is just tough as nails. Like this Arizona team is tough. And you know, like Michigan's a really good team, Duke's a really good team, but Arizona has a little bit of junkyard dog that I think is going to get that team through a difficult NCAA tournament game. You know, if it's ugly, if it's played in the mud, I have more confidence that Arizona is going to win that kind of street fight than I do Michigan or Duke. That was just really, really special against Houston.
A couple more subjects that we would cover here with you. Just go back and give your thoughts on the Duke win over Michigan, because everybody's buzzing about this performance. In particular, follow up on the premise that Jason and I have. Again, full disclosure, we were watching the game together. having some chicken wings. We would have loved to have had you for some chicken wings, but it would have
Right.
required the plane ticket to get you around us. But defensively, that's what I kept saying to Jason. They're guarding the daylights out of the Wolverines. That impressed me. What stood out to you as Duke got the win in an epic top 5 matchup in late February here this season?
Offensive glass. Duke was clearly the better team on the boards and got a lot of key offensive rebounds throughout the second half. There was that one late in the game with around 18 seconds left. When, by the way, Dusty May really screwed up that final minute. Duke had 3 1-and-1 free throw situations, and it was a 3-point game. When the other team isn't shooting free throws well and has 3 1-and-1s to sweat out, you make that team sweat out those 3 1-and-1s. But Dusty May lets 20 seconds go off the clock, and as soon as Duke gets the offensive rebound and makes that front end to go up 4, that's ball game. That when you're trailing, you do not have the luxury of allowing it to play out. And there's a difference. If they have 1 1-and-1, it's the 8th team foul. Next foul is 9. But Michigan was sitting on 16 fouls. You make a team go through those 3 1-and-1s. Like we remember how many games in the 1980s changed. NC State, Houston, based on missing those front ends. You have to make the other team sweat out 1-and-1. So Dusty May with a big coaching gaffe late.
And for me, guys, I think this was a good loss for Michigan because they've not been in one of these kind of games in a while. So, and then losing it. And my question would be for Michigan. We know what the answer is for Duke. Who are you going to in the last possession of the game if you got to score? Is it Lindeborg? I mean, we know Boozer's getting the ball for Duke if it's Duke. Where is Michigan going if they have to have a bucket?
It's Lindeborg. So the real question is, if the opponent takes away Lindeborg, who's the plan B?
Right.
And Elliot Cadeau had a clunker, and that is really the big worry for Michigan, that Cadeau is going to shoot them out of a game in March. That is obviously the big concern.
Another one. How much do we credit John Shire right about now? We were going down the litany. Love those words. A win early in the year over Kansas at Madison Square Garden. A win at Michigan State, true road win. A win over Arkansas that's looking better and better on a neutral floor in Chicago. Beat Florida at home, won this game on a neutral floor in Washington, D.C. There is nobody doubting what John Shire has been able to do this year. But, I mean, this is 3rd year in a row with a 3rd different roster, and they're winning these games. Matt, pick it up on that?
When I watched this game, I was noticing at the offensive end for Duke how often the Blue Devils made the extra pass. And often it was Cam Boozer making the extra pass, making the unselfish play. He's their meal ticket, but he was still giving up the ball when a double team or a hedge was coming his way. Like, this team is well drilled. I think you could really see it. There were so many really clean possessions in important moments where just guys are unselfish. They make the extra pass for an open shot. It was just a really well played, well coached performance by Duke. So, Duke found the right successor to Coach K. That's very clear.
Jason, I didn't ask you that question earlier. Do you echo the doubters? It's easy to say it right now. The doubters don't have anything really to go on except he hasn't won a national title yet. They were in the Final Four last year. Third year here. Thought on John Shire, Jason, real quick.
He has really answered the bell. I think there was a lot of questions about him getting that job. They really didn't interview anybody else. It was kind of a predetermined he was getting the job kind of deal. Give him all the credit. He has proven he can recruit, he can coach, he can develop. I mean, the other Boozer's probably going to stay in school. I can't imagine him trying to go to the NBA. So that's going to be another guy that they're going to have. They got more freshmen coming, and he's doing this a lot with freshmen. He is not transfer reliant. He's doing this with 18, 19-year-old freshmen who have not played at this level before, so you give him more credit for the development. His assistant coaches, Carrawell's been there a while, so give him credit and for keeping those kind of guys in the program. And yeah, I mean, you got to give Shire credit, because we all thought, we weren't sure was he the right guy to be the next guy after Coach K, but he's done nothing but exceed expectations.
All right, good enough. A couple of more moments. Gonzaga, again, we keep mentioning this. They had some problems with Pacific, but won the game. So I'm just putting it out there. They've regained their footing to an extent in the West Coast Conference. We left the air last Saturday Night Live wondering if Santa Clara would give them a tough test in the game at Santa Clara. They won the game. They have now built the resume after the win over Pacific tonight, I believe, to 15-1 in the conference.
They were a 3 seed today. They were a 3 seed in the committee preview.
Matt, if they get Huff back, that's one of the big keys. How big a threat do you deem Gonzaga come March with that stipulation?
Well, like Mark Few making the Sweet 16, like you can almost pencil that in every season. The real question is going to be what kind of matchup, what kind of bracket would Gonzaga get in a potential Sweet 16 game? Because this is not one of the better Gonzaga backcourts. So if Gonzaga runs into a guard-heavy team, a really strong backcourt, that would be a difficult matchup. So this is a matchup-dependent team more than others that Mark Few has had. That's really the outlook for Gonzaga.
Good enough.
Matt, what does Santa Clara have to do to get into do they have to get to the West Coast Conference final? What do they have to do? Do they have any more? Do they have another game with St. Mary's? What does Santa Clara have to do to solidify their at-large bid?
Santa Clara went 0-2 against Gonzaga. So, but beating San Francisco on the road tonight as we speak. That game's still in progress, but at last time I checked, Santa Clara was up 16.
Yep.
I would say win out through the Mountain West semis. I think that's what Santa Clara probably has to do. The bubble is always a study in moving parts, and a number of bubble teams, some bubble teams lost, but a lot of bubble teams won. Like UCF won, Auburn won, UCLA won. A number of bubble teams really improved their standing. So Santa Clara is battling those bubble teams who increased their stock today.
I'm putting it up on the screen, the pod audience or the TuneIn streaming audience after the fact isn't seeing it, but Chris Daubertine, our buddy with bloggingthebracket.com, had going into the weekend Santa Clara in the field in his last 4 in. He also had UCLA in his last 4 in. UCLA probably safely in Chris's mind after the Illinois win. Santa Clara kind of right on the fringe, so that's worthwhile.
And there's that other team, USC. What a disaster! What an absolute disaster! Up 70-64 with about a minute left, choke it away, losing 71-70. That's a pressure. I mean, they're just about done. USC is going to have to sweep UCLA. Good luck with that, and beat Nebraska. Like that's basically what USC has to do. Good luck.
Or have a huge Big Ten tournament beating 2 or 3 significant teams for that, but that's not likely to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we could likely all 3 of us hit the Powerball and get struck by lightning in the same day, and that's not going to happen either. So
other West Coast Bureau Chief notes. So St. Mary's was leading Washington State going down the stretch. Last time I checked, it was up 7 with 10 minutes left. Maybe it's there are several minutes down the line now. So, but St. Mary's was leading.
Who's the second best team in the Mountain West?
New Mexico was down 22 to Fresno State, came back to win. New Mexico badly needed to avoid that.
I am putting it on the screen. So New Mexico survived a near upset. Grand Canyon did not survive.
Grand Canyon loses at home to Wyoming, and San Diego State gets its doors blown off at Colorado State. It's looking like a 2-bid league right now. Utah State
and maybe somebody else that wins the tournament. Maybe.
Looking like a 2-bid Mountain West at this point.
Anything else that we left out before you depart that you want to speak on, not just Western basketball here, Matt Zemek with us on a Saturday night? Anything else?
I just think that Duke, Michigan, these late February non-conference games, like, why don't we have more of them? It's just a great March Madness tune-up, so much interest, and it freshens things up. You get into that conference grind. Why should non-conference games just be November and December? Why not have them in the middle of the season? It's like USC Notre Dame, right? Play it in mid-October, play it in late November. Non-conference games shouldn't just be at the beginning of the season. That you should have a mixture of points in the season when you play these showcase games.
And for me, guys, why aren't the mid-majors doing that more? The American, the Missouri Valley. Those are the conferences that need the marquee wins. Why aren't you playing each other in those conferences?
Let's give an example of Memphis and Utah State last week. That's what both of them were motivated by, doing a series and saying, let's play it not in November, December, to Matt's point, but let's play it in late February where it matters. And remember, Gonzaga did a deal with Kentucky a couple of years ago, I believe, to come play them at Rupp Arena in late February. And I believe they won the game. I believe they won the game. I'm not positive on that.
Gonzaga did win in Rupp, yes.
We've seen a couple of examples of it, but they're few and far between of what you're doing late in the year. Matt, I always love the insight. He's been writing up with his staff on the UCLA Bruins Wire on the USA Today websites, also the Trojans Wire website from USA Today. Go check out the writings. Other than that,
I got one more for both of you guys. Game of the year midweek, Alabama, Arkansas. Give me a thought there. Get double overtime. You had Acuff go for 49. I mean, just talk about just the drama and the beautiful play. I mean, that was just a beautiful game to watch. Forget about who won the game, but just a great game to watch.
And we almost, Matt, before you answer, had triple overtime. If the big man, the center, followed dunks at point-blank range, we're in a third overtime tied at 117. It was an insane game.
Yeah, Acuff, not only does he score 49, but he plays the full 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And he commits only one turnover. And he is the freshman of the year in college basketball as far as I'm concerned. I know you have Boozer there, but Acuff's been absolutely ridiculous, right? Like Boozer's not had a game better than that.
That was incredible. We should note that Alabama won the game. Alabama made enough plays to win the game, and both of them were winners tonight. Arkansas kept rolling with a win. Arkansas over Missouri? I got to keep all this straight. Alabama won at LSU for the SEC.
So you have Bama, Arkansas, and Tennessee tied for second in the SEC. So the main thing is not necessarily to be second, it's to not be fourth so that you're not playing Florida in the SEC tournament semifinals.
Excellent win by excellent. You mentioned you just threw it up. Tennessee, big win there.
That was a great game. Guys were making tough shots at both ends. That was great basketball.
That was.
Then you got another freshman in Nate Emmett, whichever it is, hit the big shot late. They hit the free throws late, and Vanderbilt finding out the hard way after they were 17-0. The SEC's really good. It's kind of the same thing Nebraska found out in the Big Ten, that the Big Ten is really good when they were off to their great start. So these power conferences, that's for sure. Matt, great stuff. We'll be reading you UCLA Bruins Wire, Trojans Wire as well for the Western Bureau Chief, and we love the insight on college basketball coast to coast on a Saturday night.
We'll see where the Mick Cronin soap opera goes next. So a lot of interesting content at UCLA Wire, that's for sure.
And in your state there, Matt Zemek, it's been made official. Joe Scott not returning to Air Force. We thought that was going to be, but that was made official today at Air Force. They officially parted ways and all that. So I know Air Force is not a very good program and not have a good team, but that will be another opening.
The carousel, I mean, from Syracuse, we already know there's an opening at Kansas State,
Norman's
South Carolina, Oklahoma, Arizona State.
Yeah.
There's going to be several, probably.
Yep.
Matt Zemek, thank you.
Memphis Tigers in that mix.
TJ Reeves. Hardaway, maybe. Does Penny care to continue to put up with it all? Stay tuned. Thank you, Matt Zemek. Have a great night. Follow him at Matt Zemek, Zemek. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks as always.
There we go. Love his insight. We have a few moments left. Let's tell you about our friends, forgive me, there at Kalshi. We love Kalshi and the predictive markets. As we were talking about Cameron Boozer earlier, is he going to be the player of the year? Is it AJ DeBonsa? Is it somebody else? Kalshi, right now it's over 85% believes it's Cameron Boozer in the predictive market. You can look at anything from Final Four teams to who's going to end up winning an Academy Award, presidential politics. What the government shutdown? How long is that going to last? Anything in the predictive market with Kalshi. We encourage you to go there.
Striking Iran. When's the missiles going to Tehran?
That's correct. The predictive markets are alive and electric with everything from Kalshi, and we love that. So you can go there, you can sign up, you can participate. We even have a promo code there as well, TJ Hoops. For those of you on audio not seeing it on the screen, TJ Hoops. Kalshi has it all. Who's going to win the national championship? It was decidedly for Arizona or Michigan coming into the weekend, but you got to put Duke probably in that mix in the predictive markets of who's going to win, who's going to be player of the year, on and on. What about the predictive markets of who's going to win the Big 12? Who's going to win the Big 10? Who's going to win the Big
gold
East?
medal tomorrow? Canada, U.S. hockey.
Who wins the gold medal? USA, Canada in the epic 8 a.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Italy time hockey game. Kalshi again, free to play everywhere in the United States. Just get in on the predictive voting. You can also wager, if you so desire, that some of these predictive markets are wrong. Use the promo code TJ Hoops. They'll give you $10 to play around with at Kalshi. TJ Hoops, plural, for Kalshi. Download the app, Kalshi.com. It is free to play. It's legal in all 50 states, wherever you're seeing us and watching us on college basketball coast to coast with Kalshi on a Saturday night. What else have we not covered? Speaking of bubble teams, Auburn with the comeback win over Kentucky. Again, Stephen Pearl's team beat Florida at Florida back about 3 weeks ago. They needed this tonight. They are a bubble team right now in the bracketology. They get that win this evening. What else on the bubble? We were talking earlier about 2 or 3 of these other teams that are able to get wins. UCLA needed it and got it tonight with Illinois in a tremendous comeback.
Good win by UCF at Utah, kind of a bubble team here in the state of Florida. Johnny Dawkins having a good year in the Big 12. Give me a thought, a game you and I were at Thursday night. Give me a thought about this USF team in the American. Is this, they look pretty good, probably only a 1-bid league. Give me a thought there with Brian Hodgson and his Bulls.
Very true. They are the best team in the American Conference. They are 2 games clear of everybody, and they're on the verge of locking up, if not, the regular season title. Just being at least the 2 seed means you automatically get into the semifinals of the revamped American Conference tournament. They've moved the site to Birmingham. Top 2 teams get a bye into the Saturday semifinal before the Sunday championship game. Hodgson's team shares the ball. They spread the floor, multiple 3-point shooters. Pinion, the transfer from Arkansas State. Wes Enos, great outside left-handed shooter. Big man Isaiah Nelson, big body, athletic, down low. Hodgson's team is well coached on the offensive end. They look like the team to beat right now, all things being equal for March come their tournament, right?
They would be a feisty 11 seed, if you pit them up against a mid-level, a 6 seed, which is probably going to be maybe a 3rd or 4th team out of the ACC, 3rd or 4th team out of the Big 10. That would be a feisty match. Remember, Hodgson comes from the Nate Oates tree of up and down, shoot a lot of threes, pressure, and quick up tempo. So the USF team, that's the first time I've seen them in person. I was impressed with what I saw. I know Memphis isn't great, but they played well, and they put their foot on their neck late in that first half against Memphis.
Memphis eventually missed 17 shots in a row after being up 4. They were then down by 16 and never recovered. And I was impressed. Again, we were there in the former Sun Dome, what's now the Yingling Center on the South Florida campus in Tampa. I was impressed with the ball movement, sharing the ball to find open shooters. They are well coached in the half-court offense. That can make them dangerous in March. You want a little nugget? Last time USF was in the NCAA tournament is 2011 under Stan Heath. How about that name? And in that NCAA tournament run, they went to the first 4 in Dayton that year and won a first 4 game and then won a first round game a couple of days later to stay alive on the weekend. So maybe it's the first 4 again, even if they win the conference tournament. Maybe they're an 11 seed or a 12 seed, maybe not a 12 seed if they've won the conference tournament. They have an iffy at-large case. You know who they have a big win against, USF in Tampa, is Utah State at home back in January. Talk about, again, the mid-majors being willing to play each other. Utah State came as the top team in the Mountain West, had predetermined this, and played a late January game in Tampa that the Bulls won against the Utah State Aggies. That may loom large for Brian Hodgson's team's at-large hopes. Stay tuned. That's arguably their best win on the schedule for that. But they were tough on Thursday for what it's worth in the American Conference. A few more moments. Go ahead.
Yep. We got to give our people the weekly update. The Red Hawks of Miami of Ohio still undefeated, still rocking and rolling in the MAC, and the questions will continue to loom. Can they afford a loss? Can they not?
This is interesting.
3 weeks to go.
This is interesting because Bowling Green was supposed to give them a challenge, but they won by double figures. They have the highest scoring team in the country. The next 2 games are against bad teams in Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan. So they are more than likely going to be 29-0, playing the final game of the regular season against the Ohio Bobcats, who they've already beaten. And then it's on to the MAC tournament in Cleveland. Are we about to see the first team since Gonzaga 2021 to finish the regular season undefeated? That Gonzaga team got all the way to the championship game. Remember, the tournament was all compressed in Indiana and Indianapolis, but that team got all the way to the championship game undefeated before Baylor beat them. So is this team going to be the next team that gets to the finish line of the regular season, in this case 30-0, Miami? Stay tuned. It certainly is within their grasp right now to get it. I still say to you, be your own committee and get the automatic bid, because it could get iffy coming up here if they take a loss in the MAC tournament without getting the automatic bid. Stay tuned on that on Miami of Ohio. Great story. It's been a tremendous story for Travis Steele's team, but not a guarantee. Not a guarantee here.
I'll give you one more. A10, last night, a game I mentioned last Saturday night that could have some bearing. We saw an ugly incident at the end of St. Louis and VCU. Hip check at midcourt turns into a little fracas. Your thoughts? That's the second one we had in 2 weeks. This was not near – well, I mean, it was ugly. Maybe not as ugly as the Providence situation, but it was – bunch of guys got ejected from VCU, benches cleared. That's not a good look for that.
So on the chronology of what happened, St. Louis needed this game. They lost midweek to Rhode Island, which was their first Atlantic 10 loss, dropped them to like 12-1 in the conference. VCU needed this game as a road win against a top 30 team in the net. And St. Louis really controlled the game, and they're up, I believe, 16 with seconds left in the game. And I'm just going to say it. You got a VCU player doing a stupid thing, trying to barrel down the sideline, lowering his head, running right at St. Louis players in a meaningless situation. And somebody bumps him out of bounds. And now we got pushing and shoving. And we take a week to sort it all out and eject people. I guess it adds some spice to the A10 tournament coming up. But for Josh Schertz's team with Robbie Avila and company, we'll see what the A10 does with suspensions. But it looks like they're going to head to the conference tournament. They have an at-large case. Honestly, VCU probably has a stronger at-large case. So keep an eye on both of those teams in the A10 tournament coming up in Washington, D.C., I believe. But St. Louis got the Friday night bounce-back win over Virginia Commonwealth. And again, just be smart at the end of the game. I mean, these coaches have to be responsible for telling teams when we're down 10, we're down 12, and there's 20 seconds left. Don't do anything stupid.
Run the clock out.
Don't do anything stupid, because it's going to lead to trouble and problems here at the end. Be mature. I know you're frustrated, but be mature with how it ends. But a nice win for St. Louis on the court. Let's go over a couple of more things that mattered on this Saturday as well. How about Virginia? Are they the best kept secret right now on the board? How much do we talk about Ryan Odom's team? Good three-point shooting team. They won again today. They won the out-of-conference game with Ohio State. They also have a couple of other key wins in the ACC. Are we not talking enough about Virginia right now?
And they can score, which is something they have not been able to do in recent years. So, Odom's a good coach. He was at Utah State. He's bounced around the last several years, a couple places, getting higher, better jobs. He's a good fit. And I'll say this about the Miami team. Give them credit. They've been very feisty. They've won some games. They beat Carolina earlier in the week. So give them some credit as well. I mean, they're pretty very much on the bubble to get in the tournament. Much better ACC this year. I know Clemson had a bad loss today to Florida State, but they're still comfortably in the tournament. But the ACC's gotten much better this year as far as the quality from 1 to 6, 1 to 7 throughout the top of the league.
And Virginia, in the in-game sequence, you mentioned Tony Bennett had a Final Four national championship win where they had to have the semifinal victory in Minnesota with Kyle Guy, that's the player's name, making all 3 free throws to force the overtime.
Controversial.
Okay, controversial moment. Today, they got the 3 free throws from Chance Mallory with just a couple of seconds left in the game. The game was tied at 83. He made all 3 free throws after being fouled on the 3-point shot. So kind of reminiscent, not the same stakes, but reminiscent of that. And Virginia now 12-2 in the ACC, right behind Duke for the 2 seed in the upcoming tournament. And for the Cavaliers, I'm just double checking here. You look at their wins in the conference. They did lose to North Carolina earlier in the year. I do not believe that they do play at Duke here in a couple of weeks. Not midweek, but next weekend they play Duke. But they have a win over Louisville. They have a win at NC State in the conference. And you go out of the conference, I'm just looking at a couple of other quality wins. They beat Maryland out of the Big Ten. They beat Texas out of the SEC. They beat Butler out of the Big East. So Ryan Odom's team getting the job done right now. Are they one of the best kept secrets on the board? I think that was worth mentioning. What else? I mentioned Chris Daubertine going into the weekend with the first 4 in, the last 4 out. This is before the results tonight. He had UCLA, Santa Clara, USC, Missouri as his last 4 in. Chris, again, with bloggingthebracket.com. He's our bracketology guy.
Good night, USC. Good night, USC.
USC took a loss today. And again, all of this changes day to day. But Chris, going into Saturday, had TCU, New Mexico, Virginia Tech, and Cal.
Yep.
And again, New Mexico escaped. Didn't TCU blow that game with West Virginia at home that they needed?
Yeah.
We got to double check on that. There were so many results tonight, trying to keep track of all of this.
Cal beat Stanford late here on the West Coast. So that
actually, it is TCU coming back to beat West Virginia on Saturday night in a game that Jamie Dixon's team had to have. Remember, they beat Iowa State a couple of games ago as well. And TCU has an out-of-conference win over who? Florida. So that may help them. And Virginia Tech with a wipeout win at home in the ACC today as well. Anything else that we have left out? Where else you want to go?
Quick update on our Horizon League. Wright State looks like they're going to be the 1 seed in the Horizon, 2.5 game lead. But you got a huge jumbled up for the 2, basically through the 2 through the 5 seed. Green Bay, Robert Morris, who we saw, Oakland, Detroit, Northern Kentucky. You got 4 teams that are all with the same number of losses in the loss column with a couple games to go here. So the Horizon League is going to be a wild quarterfinal, semifinal situation with Wright State most likely being the 1 seed.
Well, and let's lay out that they play the opening round of the tournament at home sites. Okay. So higher seeded teams. The top 2 teams advance all the way to the semifinal in Indianapolis on Monday night of championship week. That is Monday night, March the 9th. So right now, that is Wright State, and if I'm not mistaken, it is still Oakland.
Bay.
It's Green Bay
now
in that 2 spot after Green Bay won over Oakland last night at Oakland without Doug Gottlieb, who was suspended for a game for criticizing the officials.
Yes.
So Green Bay turns around and wins that important game. So we'll call the Horizon League Championship game on the TuneIn College Basketball Coast to Coast channel Tuesday night, March the 10th. And we come back to the Mountain West and the crazy afternoon and night in the Mountain West, where Utah State is the top team. But I don't know what we make of like 2 through 7 in the rest of this conference in the Mountain West, Jason. With more upsets today. How does Grand Canyon lose to Wyoming at home? How does San Diego State blow another game when it looked like they were solidly in the field at large They lost to Grand Canyon midweek. They lost again to Colorado State today. So what's going to happen with the Mountain West and with the bubble teams? It just appears to be wide open at this stage below Utah State. Probably a second team is going to get in.
Yep.
But you could almost make the argument that Utah State's the only deserving team if they win the tournament on Saturday, March the 14th. You could make that argument, right?
You very well could. And again, these other bubble teams in these other conferences, that's exactly what they want. They want Utah State to blow through that tournament to give nobody a backdoor into that tournament to open up another at-large bid for somebody else. So, San Diego State, New Mexico tied for second, 2 games in front of Grand Canyon, who would be the 4 seed as of today. So, again, Matt made the comment you want to avoid Utah State in the semifinals if you can. But right now it looks like Grand Canyon's that 4 seed would have to probably play a Utah State potentially in the semifinal.
What if I tell you as we do this live, Nevada 76, Utah State 73 with about a minute and a half left.
There you go.
My friend, it is going to be absolutely off the chain, bonkers, in Las Vegas at the Thomas and Mack Center for that Thursday quarterfinal night and the Friday semifinal night, because somebody out of San Diego State, New Mexico, Grand Canyon, Nevada, Boise State, somebody's got to emerge along with Utah State and end up in the title game. And Utah State may not even make it.
Right.
A year ago, it was Boise State, Colorado State battling for the automatic bid. We saw New Mexico ourselves 2 years ago in Vegas, did the game on the radio, on the TuneIn channel, nationally, digitally. We saw New Mexico win 4 games in 4 nights.
Yep. Donovan Dent at point guard.
Donovan Dent. It all comes back. Well played. It all comes back to Donovan Dent. And what a tremendous game tonight for UCLA. And he goes end-to-end, shades of Tyus Edney for the layup to win the game against Illinois, a game they trailed by 23 points. Game was 32-10. And you can't say it enough that this team could have rolled over and died on Mick Cronin with how he has been acting, throwing his own player off the bench, go to the locker room in the game against Michigan State midweek. He apologized for it, but was he going to lose the locker room? He didn't lose the locker room. They played and played hard for him and got back in the game and beat Illinois tonight.
I had a secret sage tell me, load the wagon on Illinois tonight.
I was at Sage. I thought this was Illinois green light all the way tonight. And at 32-10, you were patting me on the back while we were having chicken wings.
Yes.
The problem is there was still 30 minutes to play. And UCLA is one of the stories of this Saturday.
Coming off of they beat USC by like 35 3 nights ago.
That's right.
Illinois did. Right. So they were on it.
Also, welcome to the Big 12, where BYU maintains a lead over Iowa State, leading 52-45 with about 10 minutes left. Long way to go. AJ DeBonsa and company at home in Provo. How crazy is the Big 12 tournament going to be in Kansas City with a dangerous team like BYU lurking, or after what we saw Cincinnati do today? UCF could be dangerous. And then all those teams at the top, Arizona, Kansas, Iowa State. Who am I leaving out? Houston, Texas Tech. Big 12 tournament's going to be wild, too.
I'm telling you right now, sleeper team in the first to get to the Sweet 16 as a 7 or 8 seed is going to be BYU. They can score the ball. I know they're not great defensively. They've got some size with Cada. They've got DeBonsa. When you've got a guy like DeBonsa that can score 35, I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to be a very nasty and dangerous 7-8 seed is going to be BYU.
Let me say this, too, before we leave on college basketball coast to coast. It needs to be mentioned because life and death is much more important than college basketball. We have fun talking about all of this. 2 horrible situations. On Thursday evening, a Tennessee writer by the name of Wes Rucker was killed in a traffic accident on I-40 near Knoxville, Tennessee. Wes has been in the Tennessee media and the Knoxville media for 25 years. Leaves behind a wife, a son, and another child on the way. Rick Barnes, after the Tennessee win over Vanderbilt, made it a point again to say, donate to this family, donate to his GoFundMe. Wes Rucker had health problems, did not have life insurance for his family. Again, killed in an automobile accident unexpectedly on Thursday. Horrible. After he had covered the Tennessee game midweek. Very well-known media member in Knoxville for Tennessee football and basketball. And then we're in the Tampa Bay area where Joey Knight has been a 25-year-plus writer for the Tampa Tribune and the Tampa Bay Times, writing local sports, high school sports, and covering the USF Bulls football and basketball in the Tampa Bay market. Joey had been battling cancer for 2.5 years, 2+ years, before cancer took his life earlier this week. You won't find a more genuine guy. I've known Joey for 25 years. Joey and I have had meals together, gone over all kinds of scenarios about sports and life. He's got grown children, 2 daughters and a son who he loved very much, his wife who he loved very much, great support staff. His dad was a legendary high school football coach in Zephyr Hills, Florida, a northern suburb of Tampa Bay. This family is well known in the northern suburbs. Joey Knight, well known in the media circles all over the state of Florida and the Tampa Bay area. So again, we love talking the games and sports. This is life and death. Jason Powers, I don't know what else you want to add to that. Just awful.
And I know we got a lot of football fans listening to this podcast. Terrible news on Saturday night breaking that Rondell Moore, the wide receiver for the Cardinals, went to Purdue. Apparently self-inflicted gunshot wound, killed himself, 25 years old, been in the NFL 4 years, had some injury issues. Again, sounds like it was a self-inflicted wound. So a terrible story coming out of the NFL tonight. So, again, appreciate the friends and the family that you have. Tell them you love them because you never know. Everybody's going through something, whether it's physical, mental, whatever. So tell the people you care about you love them.
No doubt. And again, we love to yuck it up here and talk the college basketball as we have done on the platforms for another Saturday night. Crazy games. Duke, Arizona rising up to the top. St. John's, UConn will play midweek in the rematch in Hartford before we're back. Does UConn get their revenge? Any thought on that for that big showdown coming in the Big East where St. John's has won 13 in a row?
Favor UConn here to get even. Again, I would almost hope they win because I'd love to see the third matchup potentially in Madison Square Garden in the Big East final on that Saturday night for all the marbles to break the tie. So, yes, give me UConn at home to hold serve there.
UConn was definitely tough today, and Duke flexing its muscle with Michigan, Arizona winning at Houston. This is going to be some kind of march. Including the coaching carousel and who's going to end up going where. Jason Powers, great stuff. Thank you. Thank you to Adam Zagoria of NJ.com, an insider with us on college basketball coast to coast. Also, Matt Zemek, always good to be with us, our Western Bureau Chief here on this Saturday night. As I'm putting up on the screen, make sure to follow and subscribe on the YouTube channel, Twitter X as well for all of the coverage, Facebook, TuneIn channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast has our streaming coverage. And also on podcast, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify for all the coverage here on College Basketball Coast to Coast. At CBB Coast to Coast is the Twitter handle, YouTube page by the same name, TuneIn channel by the same name, podcast College Basketball Coast to Coast as well.
When we finish this up, Mr. Rives, next Saturday night, we will probably be in March when we finish this show up.
That's correct, because if it bleeds into midnight, it'll be March the 1st, and we're now 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday, and all of it's sorting out.
Who's the best team in the country for you? Give me the top
right
3
now,
teams.
it's Duke.
Forget
how to argue Duke after what we saw tonight. I know the Arizona fans would fight you with the out-of-conference wins. I know that people will look at what UConn has done. You can still make the argument for Michigan with only the 2 losses. Gator fans in our state saying, what about us? We're coming on. We're the champs until somebody beats us. I get it, but I'd probably go Duke, and I didn't go to Duke. We don't live in North Carolina. I don't have any specific allegiance to them. But after that win tonight, again, win at Michigan State, win on a neutral floor against Arkansas, win on a neutral floor against Kansas, win at home with Florida, win that game tonight with Michigan. Tough to argue that it's not Duke. with what they've done. What about you? If you had to pick one as the top seed right now, is it Arizona instead of them? Is it somebody else?
In a one-game scenario, I'm going to still lean on Dusty May in Michigan as of today. Neutral site, I'm going to still say Michigan today.
It's all we have to go on for now. It's still February.
Yep.
Jason, great stuff. Follow him at JPO Sports. JPO Sports on the social media, the Powers on Sports podcast, as you see on the screen.
Who wins the hockey game tomorrow morning, 8 a.m.?
I think we go patriotism. We go USA to beat the Canadians for the gold medal.
We've not won a gold medal since 1980.
That's right. It's
46 years to the day that we won it in 1980. To the day tomorrow morning.
Stay tuned. Canada won the epic overtime 2010 game in Vancouver with Sidney Crosby getting the game-winning goal. The Canadians have lived dangerously the last couple of games, including an overtime win. Stay tuned.
The irony is our guy, John Cooper's the coach for the Canadian team.
The Tampa Bay Lightning coach, the Stanley Cup winning coach, is the Canadian coach.
Yep.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned on
instead of breakfast at Wimbledon, it's
breakfast in Italy,
in Milan.
In Milan, 8 a.m. Eastern time. Adjust your time zone accordingly. We got to get in the bed eventually to watch the hockey live tomorrow if it's up and going. Jason, have a great night. Thank you.
You got it.
And we thank you all for watching and tuning in, listening in on college basketball coast to coast.